After 3 years of marriage, I'd become the punchline in everyone's joke. So when my ice-cold CEO wife, Vanessa, finally threw divorce papers across the table, I kept a straight face, but inside, I was doing cartwheels. Finally. This is it. The day has come. Once I pocket that settlement check, I'm out of this miserable life and straight to Silverford City. Beachfront condo, bourbon at noon, no more silent dinners or walking on eggshells. Let's go. But just as I lifted the pen to sign, she ripped the papers to shreds. I've changed my mind. We're not getting divorced. I froze. What? What I didn't know, what no one knew, was that she could hear everything I was thinking. You idiot, I was ranting internally. You still don't see it, do you? Your charming first love is a total fraud. He's plotting to bleed you dry and drag your entire family down with him. Get the divorce, woman. Every second you delay is a slap in the face to my Silverford dream life. That day, everything changed. The icy, unreadable woman I married? She flipped. Suddenly she was, paying attention. Following my unspoken cues. Acting like I was the genius in the room. I'd mutter in my mind that her ex's charity gala was just for show, and boom, she'd humiliate him at dinner, exposing his lies in front of 100 socialites. I'd mentally flag an impending crisis in her family's company, and next thing I knew, she was standing in a boardroom, dismantling opposition with surgical precision, quoting my exact thoughts as if they were her own insights. The same woman who used to barely look my way. Now she was awkwardly, trying to please me. And her eyes. There was something different in them now. Warmth. Admiration. Affection? Wait. No. That look. That look wasn't part of the plan. My Silverford escape might be in serious trouble. The living room of the luxury villa was ice-cold, quiet and clinical, as if emotion had long been evicted. Perched on a leather sofa that probably cost more than most people's annual salary, Vanessa slid a crisp stack of divorce papers across the glass table. Her voice was as cold and controlled as the woman herself, zero warmth, zero hesitation. Sign it. Your Westbridge apartment stays with you. The Audi A6, too. And I've arranged a wire transfer, $5 million will be in your account by morning. She said it like she was dismissing a contractor, not ending a marriage. Ethan looked up from the papers and met the eyes of the woman who'd been, on paper, his wife for 3 years. Vanessa looked stunning, as always. Clad in a slate-gray power suit that hugged her frame with precision, every line of her face was flawlessly made up. But her expression was distant, detached. Like he was a loose end to be tied up. Ethan reached for the pen on the table. It felt cold to the touch, like the room, like her. Perfect. Yes. Finally. This is it. Divorce, hell yes. End it. I've had enough of this dead-eyed life. Every single day's been a slow suffocation. The car, the apartment, $5 million. That's more than enough to set myself up in Silverford. Somewhere warm. Somewhere alive. I'll find a woman who actually gives a damn, who knows how to love, how to listen. My real life starts now. A voice, vivid, exuberant, almost euphoric, burst into Vanessa's head. Unfiltered. Crystal clear. She jolted, her spine stiffening. What was that? Who just said that? But the cavernous living room was still empty, save for the man across from her, the one holding the pen. Ethan. And he hadn't said a single word out loud. And yet, Ethan hadn't said a word. In fact, his face still wore a trace of quiet sorrow, like a man making peace with heartbreak. Vanessa's brows drew together. Was she hallucinating? Had the stress finally pushed her over the edge? She opened her mouth to urge him again, but Ethan was already unscrewing the pen cap, his hand steady as he prepared to sign. The moment the tip of the pen touched the paper, the past came flooding back. A tide of memories, visceral, undeniable. This exact moment. This same divorce agreement. He had signed it. Walked away with nothing. Believed it was freedom. But within a year, the man she once called her true love, Adrian, had bared his fangs. He gutted Whitmore Holdings from the inside out, draining every last dollar through shell companies and fabricated investments. The empire crumbled. And Vanessa? Left with nothing but wreckage and regret. As for Ethan, the supposedly harmless ex-husband, he didn't escape Adrian's wrath either. His body was eventually found in an alley, bloodied and cold. This time around, Ethan remembered it all. And all he wanted was to run. Sign. Now. Don't waste a second. Every delay is a betrayal of the life that's waiting for me. Happiness is calling, and it sure as hell isn't here. Vanessa, you idiot. You still think Adrian is some flawless saint in a tailored suit? You're getting played so hard it's embarrassing. Just wait, Whitmore Holdings is about to sink like the Titanic. And you'll be right there on deck, smiling while he sells you off and makes you count the cash. Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. Adrian? Company collapse? Sold off and counting the money yourself? The words crashed through her skull like thunderclaps. One after another. Explosive. Unrelenting. She wasn't hallucinating. She was hearing his thoughts. Vanessa stared hard at Ethan. His face was unreadable, calm even, but inside his head, the voice was still there. Loud, chaotic, pouring venom like a live broadcast she couldn't turn off. What the hell was going on? The pen was just about to finish the final stroke of his name when a terrifying thought seized her. No. I can't let him sign. Wait. Vanessa lunged forward and grabbed his wrist. Ethan froze, eyes lifting in confusion. Before he could react, she snatched the divorce papers from beneath his hand and tore them clean down the middle. Then again. And again. The shreds fluttered to the floor like snow. She took a deep breath, trying to will the tremor out of her voice, forcing a calm that wasn't real. We're not getting divorced. Silence. A suffocating, unnatural silence filled the entire room. Ethan stared at her, stunned, as the pen slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a sharp clink. What the hell? Has this woman lost her damn mind? What happened to the divorce? The $5 million? My Silverford dream life? The sweet, obedient new wife I was gonna find? Did my reincarnation screw up the timeline? Is this some kind of butterfly effect nonsense? Vanessa heard every panicked, angry thought crashing through her skull like a storm. She looked at him, at his wide, disbelieving eyes, and for the first time since this nightmare started, she felt a strange, unexpected calm settle over her. She didn't know how or why she could hear his thoughts. But she did know one thing. Until she figured out what the hell was happening. This marriage wasn't going anywhere. Vanessa didn't sleep a single minute that night. The crystal chandelier above the bed hung in silence, offering no light, no comfort, just like the chaos churning inside her head. Ethan's voice, his real voice, the one that poured through her mind like unfiltered wildfire, clashed violently with the man she thought she'd married. For 3 years, she'd believed he was a spineless nobody. A soft-spoken pushover. A ghost in his own home. Now, that voice wouldn't stop replaying in her head. Adrian is a con artist. Whitmore Holdings will go bankrupt. The claims were outrageous. But the look on Ethan's face yesterday, like he'd seen a ghost, like the world had turned sideways, that hadn't been fake. She needed answers. She needed proof. The next morning, the air in the dining room felt even more strained than the night before. Ethan sat at the table quietly chewing his toast, eyes fixed on his plate, pretending Vanessa didn't exist. He just wanted her to calm down, move past whatever breakdown she'd had, and get back to the damn divorce. Vanessa set her glass of milk down, feigning casual interest. "Oh, by the way," she said lightly, "Adrian invited me to a charity gala tonight. Asked if I'd join him." Ethan's hand paused midair with the spoon. Just for a split second. Then he recovered. A neutral grunt. Emotionless. But in his head? A different story entirely. Here we go. The charity gala arc begins. Adrian, that smooth-talking conman, is gonna take the stage with his fake tears and heartfelt speech, then dramatically announce a $500,000 donation, all under Vanessa's name. He won't pay a cent of it himself, of course. It's all coming from her account. And as if that wasn't enough, he's also skimming a fat kickback off the inflated invoices from Angel's Haven Orphanage. He gets the glory, the money, and the headlines, and she's just the idiot ATM, smiling through it like it's some romantic gesture. God, she's so hopelessly gullible it hurts. The porcelain cup in Vanessa's hand creaked faintly as her knuckles tightened around it. Angel's Haven Orphanage. The name rang a bell. Adrian had mentioned it before. Said the children there were underfunded, heart-wrenching cases. A cause close to his heart. Vanessa didn't flinch. Calm and collected, she picked up her phone and typed out a message at lightning speed. Drop everything. I need a full audit on Angel's Haven Orphanage, 3 years of financials, every transaction, every link to Adrian. I want the whole picture, now. Just as she hit send, a low buzz vibrated across the table. Ethan's phone. He glanced at the caller ID, frowned, and instantly declined the call. Carl again. That clown's entire brain is just massage girls and overpriced cigars. He wants to hang out? Seriously? What the hell does he think I'm doing, planning a bachelor party? I've got one job now, secure the $5 million, get out of this hellhole, and start my damn life in Silverford. I don't have time to waste with a bunch of bloated deadweights in some neon-lit man cave. Vanessa's eyes moved to his phone. She set her cup down and, without hesitation, reached across the table. Ethan blinked in disbelief as she picked up his phone. What are you? But before he could protest, she swiped open the screen. No passcode. Of course. She already knew that. The screen lit up. A string of messages appeared instantly, clear, uncensored, and damning. The sender, Carl. The latest message glowed on the screen. Same spot tonight. Got a few new models for you, fresh, hot, and guaranteed to blow your mind. Come out and have some fun, man. Time. Name. Exact wording. Identical to what she'd just heard in his head. Vanessa's heart slammed against her ribs like it had been grabbed by an invisible hand. It's real. All of it is real. She tossed the phone back onto the table without a word, her expression unreadable. Then she stood and walked away, heels clicking across the polished floor with sharp, deliberate finality. Ethan stared after her, completely baffled. What the hell is up with her now? She snatches my phone, reads one dumb message, and storms off. None of this makes sense. By 7 p.m., the charity gala was in full swing. Champagne shimmered. Laughter sparkled. The ballroom was awash in elegance, pearls, silk, murmured gossip over crystal flutes. When Vanessa entered the room, all eyes turned. She was breathtaking, as always, an icon in the business world. But it wasn't just her beauty that froze the room. It was the man on her arm. Ethan. The husband most assumed existed only on paper. The man everyone believed was riding her coattails, a pretty face with no credentials and even less presence. This was the first time they'd ever appeared together in public. Across the room, Adrian spotted them immediately. Clad in a pristine white tuxedo, he cut through the crowd with effortless charm. But when his eyes landed on Ethan, a flicker of something dark, contempt, maybe, flashed across his face before vanishing behind a polished smile. "You made it," he said smoothly, voice like silk. "And this must be." Vanessa gave a polite nod, then gently withdrew her arm from Ethan's. "This is my husband. Ethan." Her voice was cool. Measured. Almost bored. "The way you might introduce your lawyer, or your accountant." Ethan was more than happy to fade into the background. He slipped away from the crowd and made a beeline for the buffet, settling in beside a silver platter piled high with lobster. "Damn, this lobster's actually fresh. Not bad. And hey, it's Vanessa's dime. Be a shame not to enjoy myself. Might as well grab a front row seat for the Adrian show while I'm at it." Vanessa caught the flicker of his thoughts and felt the corner of her mouth twitch involuntarily. Soon, the evening moved into its centerpiece program. Adrian, the event's spotlight guest, took the stage. With a microphone in hand and a face sculpted in sincerity, he launched into a stirring speech about love, compassion, and the importance of giving back. His words rang with such practiced warmth, several socialites in the crowd were visibly moved. "For those beautiful children," Adrian said, his gaze settling tenderly on Vanessa, "I've decided to make a donation of $500,000, in the name of someone truly dear to me. Miss Whitmore." The room erupted. Applause thundered through the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Faces turned toward Vanessa, their eyes brimming with admiration and envy. It was the perfect high society moment, the glamorous philanthropist and her noble admirer. Adrian looked at her, expecting the usual, a touched, radiant smile. Maybe a tear. Certainly a look of devotion. Instead, Vanessa just stood there. Unmoved. Expressionless. Not a flicker of emotion on her face. As the clapping faded into a curious hush, she calmly reached for the microphone at her side. Her voice rang out clear and cool through the speaker system, slicing clean through the golden atmosphere of the ballroom. "Mr. Blake," she said, "you truly are a man of great generosity." Adrian's smile deepened, buttery and poised. He had no idea what was coming. But Vanessa's next words hit Adrian like a bucket of ice water dumped straight over his head. "In fact," she said smoothly, "I just heard something interesting. That $300,000 you pledged to Southgate Hope Elementary last year? Apparently, the school still hasn't received a single cent." She tilted her head, her tone cool, almost thoughtful. "Maybe the banking system glitched? Though I suppose a 1-year delay seems unusually long for a wire transfer." The ballroom fell silent. Dead silent. Every pair of eyes swung from Vanessa to the stage, fast, sharp, and unforgiving. Adrian's smile collapsed. His face, moments ago so charming and composed, drained of color as if someone had pulled the plug. He stood frozen, pale, exposed beneath the ballroom lights like a man caught naked in church. The spectacle at the gala ended with Adrian making a hasty, humiliated exit. But the real fallout arrived the next morning, crashing into Vanessa's villa like a storm front. Her mother, Linda, and older brother, Ryan, barged into the living room, practically vibrating with fury. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Linda snapped. Her perfectly tailored suit and immaculately maintained face couldn't hide the fire blazing in her eyes. "Do you have any idea what you did last night? You humiliated Adrian, in public. For what? For that useless man?" Ryan didn't bother with subtlety. He jabbed a finger toward Ethan, who was sitting calmly on the corner of the sofa, nibbling a piece of toast like the whole morning meltdown had nothing to do with him. "This freeloader is the reason. You need to divorce him, now. Go apologize to Adrian. Maybe, there's still a chance to fix this disaster." Ethan didn't even lift his eyes. Still lounging on the sofa, he scrolled leisurely through his phone, the very picture of indifference, though inside, he was grinning ear to ear. Here we go. Classic family meltdown scene, Act 1. Yep, I'm the parasite. I'm the disgrace. Let it all out, yell louder, maybe they'll kick me out on the spot. Honestly, that'd be ideal. If Vanessa throws me out today, I could bump up my flight and be in Silverford by sunset. His nonchalance was gasoline on Ryan's fire. You've got some nerve, you leech. Ryan snarled, stepping forward. 3 years we fed and clothed you, and you've got the audacity to sit there like this means nothing? You should be ashamed just breathing our air. Enough. The single word cracked through the room like a whip. The yelling stopped. Instantly. Vanessa rose from her seat, spine straight, voice like steel laced with ice. Her gaze swept over her mother and brother, measured, unblinking, and unfamiliar. It was a look neither of them had seen before. Ethan is my husband, she said coldly. And you don't get to come into my home and speak about him like that. Linda's mouth opened, then closed. Ryan stepped back half a pace. Both looked like someone had slapped them. As for Adrian, Vanessa's voice wasn't loud, but every word cut clean. I know exactly what kind of man he is. Don't mention his name in this house again. She walked to the door and opened it wide. If you came here to plead his case, you can leave now. Ethan finally looked up from his phone, disbelief written all over his face. Wait, what? She's defending me now? Did I miss something? Is the sun rising in the west today? What the hell is she playing at? Is this some twisted setup? Make me feel safe just to gut me later? Damn, women really are terrifying. Linda and Ryan stood frozen for a beat, too stunned to speak. Then, with matching scowls and a final huff, they stormed out, slamming the door behind them hard enough to rattle the chandelier. And just like that, the spacious living room was silent again. Only Ethan and Vanessa remained. The air between them had shifted, charged, uncertain. Vanessa's defense hadn't been solely because of the voices in her head. It was something else. When Ryan hurled those insults at Ethan, a wave of buried memories had surged up, unbidden and sharp, breaking through the carefully constructed wall she'd built around her past. She remembered the night her chronic stomach pain flared so badly she couldn't sleep. The next morning, a bowl of warm herbal broth had appeared on the dining table. Ethan had brought it to her in silence. She'd pushed it away coldly, muttering, "I'm not drinking that." She remembered an offhand comment she'd once made while flipping through a magazine, something about liking the style of an obscure painter. Weeks later, she found 2 gallery tickets tucked beneath a book in her study. The date? Her birthday. She hadn't gone. She'd been in Hawaii with Adrian. And there were those few miserable days every month, when pain and fatigue would keep her in bed. She'd always found a hot water bottle by the headboard, ready and waiting. She assumed the housekeeper had left it. She never questioned it. She never thanked him. All these small, quiet gestures, dismissed, overlooked, even sneered at, now returned with needlepoint precision, pricking at her heart one by one. Turns out, she wasn't the one offering love from on high. She was the fool who'd been loved quietly, and never once noticed. That evening, as Ethan stepped through the front door, he was immediately hit by the unmistakable smell of burning. Thick. Acrid. Alarming. He followed the scent into the dining room, and froze. Vanessa stood there in loungewear, looking oddly out of place in the domestic setting. Her expression was somewhere between anxious and hopeful. In front of her sat a dinner plate. On it was something blackened, charred beyond recognition, and very possibly dangerous. "I made this," she said, clearing her throat. "Try it." Ethan stared at the thing on the plate. A long silence stretched between them. Jesus Christ. Did she dig this up from a volcanic dig site? This was, steak? Is she trying to kill me? No, wait, she's already ditched Adrian. She's got no motive to take me out. Unless this is part of some twisted new ploy. Give me food poisoning, then nurse me back to health? Keep me bedridden long enough to delay the divorce? Damn. That's devious. Respect. His mind was racing, wild with conspiracy theories. But his face? Utterly blank. Emotionless. Vanessa stood by, watching him with a mix of nerves and anticipation. Slowly, Ethan picked up the knife and fork. He pressed down, using considerable force to chip off a piece of the steak, which crunched like stone beneath the blade. He brought it to his mouth, chewed with mechanical resolve, and somehow managed to swallow. Crunch. Grit. Smoky rubber. He nodded. It's fine. Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. In them, a flicker of something unexpected. A mix of guilt, softness, and something else. Something shy and quiet that even she didn't fully recognize. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. Her cooking was terrifying. But her smile? That was worse. That night, Ethan lay stiffly on their 2-meter-wide bed, but hugged the edge like his life depended on it. If he could have put 10 feet between himself and Vanessa, he would have. With pleasure. This woman is not okay. Not even close. She defends me in the morning, tries to poison me at night, her mental state's a damn minefield. This has to be dissociative identity disorder. It's the only explanation. Yeah. That's it. She's got multiple personalities. One cooks, one kills, and one plays loving wife. I need to take her to a hospital. No more waiting. A full psych evaluation, tomorrow. As his thoughts spiraled into madness, Vanessa rolled over beside him. Her arm, warm, bare, and completely unconscious, flopped across his chest. Ethan froze like he'd been electrocuted. He didn't move. He couldn't. His back arched involuntarily, desperate to distance itself from the foreign limb now resting against him. In the stillness of the dark room, he could hear his own heart pounding like it was trying to escape. Then he heard it. Soft. Barely a whisper. A slurred little sigh from her lips, somewhere between sleep and dreaming. Ethan. The next morning, a sharp, urgent ring shattered the fragile calm that had just begun to settle over the villa. Vanessa's phone lit up. A second later, her expression drained of color. Her grandfather, Charles Whitmore, had suffered a sudden heart attack. He was in critical condition. Without a word, she grabbed her car keys and bolted for the door. Ethan remained on the couch, motionless. But in his eyes, something flickered, quiet, knowing. So it begins. Downtown. The private wing of St. David's Medical Center. The hallway outside the VIP suite was suffocating, heavy with tension. Linda sat on a bench dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Ryan paced the hallway like a caged animal, his jaw clenched and his phone vibrating endlessly in his palm. And then there was Adrian. Perfectly tailored suit. Perfectly earnest concern. He moved between family members with practiced ease, handing tissues, offering reassurances, fielding calls to specialists. If someone had taken a photo, he'd look more like the family's golden son-in-law than anything else. Vanessa had barely stepped off the elevator when he was already approaching, voice low and full of tender authority. "Don't worry," he said gently. "I've already contacted Dr. Gregory Shaw. He's one of the top cardiologists in the state. Your grandfather's in good hands." He looked at her with steady, reliable eyes. Just the right amount of confidence, just the right amount of concern. It was all so polished. Then Ryan spotted Ethan trailing quietly behind her. His expression curdled. "What the hell are you doing here?" he snapped. We don't need a freeloader cluttering up the hallway. Go home. Ethan didn't answer. He just walked past him, calm as a whisper, and dropped into a chair in the corner. Pulled out his phone. Started tapping. Looked like a guy playing Candy Crush at a bus stop. But his thoughts? Anything but casual. Keep the show going, Adrian. You really missed your calling. Not being an actor's the only crime you haven't committed yet. Same setup as before. Same doctor. Dr. Gregory Shaw, the so-called miracle specialist. He was the one who gave that experimental treatment last time. Charles didn't last a week. A flawless medical accident. Zero liability. Zero trace. Then Adrian swept in, grieved, helped, took charge of the aftermath, and started carving up Whitmore Holdings like it was a Sunday roast. Brilliant move, really. Vanessa turned, ready to tell Ethan to quit playing games and leave. Then the voice in her head hit her like a freight train. Each internal line, each whispered truth, crashing through her like a series of detonations. Her body went rigid. Blood turned to ice. Vanessa's eyes snapped toward Adrian. He stood at the far end of the hallway, deep in conversation with a man in a white coat, presumably Dr. Gregory Shaw. His expression hadn't changed, that same carefully calibrated look of solemn concern, touched with just enough sorrow to seem human. But to Vanessa, that face, so handsome, so familiar, suddenly felt wrong. Cold. Predatory. Her heart lurched in her chest. What is real anymore? On one side stood Adrian, admired by her family, trusted by top physicians, the man she once believed to be flawless. Her perfect man. On the other. Ethan. The husband she had spent 3 years resenting. Dismissed. Mocked. Ignored. A man whose behavior had veered into the absurd, but whose every dark, unspoken warning had proven frighteningly accurate. Who do I trust? The stakes weren't metaphorical anymore. They were life and death. Her grandfather's life. Moments later, Dr. Shaw approached with an injector pen in hand. There was a faint smile on his face, professional, nonchalant. Good news, he announced. We've managed to obtain a specialized compound through expedited channels. It's experimental, but promising. Once administered, it should stabilize his condition almost immediately. Adrian stepped forward, voice warm and assertive. That's fantastic. Thank you, doctor. We'll cover any cost, just do whatever it takes to save him. Linda and Ryan both surged forward, visibly relieved. Oh, thank God. Please, doctor, go ahead. Wait. Vanessa's voice cracked through the hallway like a gunshot. She lunged between the doctor and the hospital bed, arms spread protectively, blocking her grandfather's frail body with her own. No one touches him. The room froze. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim in the tension. Vanessa's eyes, now blazing with clarity and resolve, locked onto Dr. Shaw's with an intensity that made him stop mid-step. Silence spread through the hallway like wildfire. You've lost your mind. Adrian was the first to react. His voice rose, eyes wide with disbelief and indignation. Vanessa, this is about saving your grandfather's life. Ryan practically exploded. Are you seriously letting that useless parasite Ethan fill your head with garbage? Move. Now. If something happens because of you, can you live with that? In an instant, every voice, every accusation, every ounce of pressure turned on her, sharp and unrelenting. Verbal arrows, fired point blank. Vanessa stood there, pale and trembling, but unmoving. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned, slowly, deliberately, and looked toward the man seated in the corner. The only one who hadn't said a word through the chaos. Ethan put away his phone. He stood. And then, without rush or ceremony, he walked forward. He didn't spare a glance for Ryan. Or Linda. Or even Adrian. He stopped just short of the doctor, his tone calm, quiet, but razor-sharp. "That injection," he said, "comes with a black box warning. It's strictly contraindicated for patients with severe arrhythmia." He paused. "Let it sink in. If I'm not mistaken," he added, "Charles Whitmore's medical file has that exact condition flagged in red." Dr. Gregory Shaw went pale. Instantly. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Ethan didn't give him the chance. "I just sent the full case file and the drug's composition to Professor Philip Green at the International Cardiology Institute," he continued. "Got a reply 30 seconds ago." He raised his phone, turning the screen to face them all. His words, verbatim, "If this drug is administered, the patient will not survive the night." The email on the screen was real. The bolded sentence had been zoomed in, highlighted for all to see. The silence that followed was absolute. "Oh, almost forgot," Ethan said, as if casually remembering an item on a grocery list. He turned toward Adrian, whose face had already gone ghost white, and offered a slow, razor-thin smirk. "I also looked into the distributor for that miracle drug of yours. Turns out, there's only one licensed supplier in the country." He tilted his head, feigning curiosity. "And guess what? The company was just registered a few weeks ago, under your brother Anthony's name." Boom. The final detonation. The truth wasn't revealed, it was detonated in the center of the room. Adrian and Dr. Shaw's scheme lay in ruins, torn apart by Ethan's surgical precision and infuriating nonchalance. Ryan stood speechless. Linda, mouth agape, turned to Adrian, then to Ethan, then back again, her expression frozen somewhere between confusion and horror. Vanessa didn't move. She just stared at Ethan's profile, stunned. The man who had once been mocked, dismissed, pushed aside, was now the one standing between her and disaster. Between her family and tragedy. While everyone else shouted or hesitated, he had acted. Like a wall, solid and immovable, he'd placed himself between death and the people she loved. And in that moment, something inside her cracked. No, collapsed. 3 years of disdain. Misjudgment. Emotional walls carefully built and reinforced. Gone. Reduced to rubble in a single, irretrievable instant. But Ethan? He didn't seem to notice. As if he'd just returned a borrowed pen or taken out the trash, he yawned, ambled back to the corner chair, and plopped down with a sigh. Done. Case closed. Jesus, I just want to go home and crash. How long is this crap going to drag on? When the hell am I finally getting to Silverford and my damn peaceful life? Vanessa heard the thought echo clearly in her mind. And for reasons she couldn't explain, not even to herself, her throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She blinked hard, but it didn't stop the sting. Tears welled up anyway. After the chaos at the hospital, the atmosphere at home turned strange. Stranger than usual. Linda and Ryan, smacked clean across the face by reality, no longer dared mention Adrian's name. The scorn in their eyes when they looked at Ethan had been replaced by something else entirely. Fear. And a kind of grudging, confused respect. They spent most of their days holed up in their rooms, unusually quiet, as if afraid to stir the air wrong. That night, Ethan had just stepped out of the shower, towel slung over his shoulders, mentally reviewing tomorrow's lunch options. Maybe the steakhouse on 5th? Or that new seafood place downtown. Then he saw her. Vanessa. She was standing in front of him, holding a glass of warm milk. Gone was the icy armor. Gone was the precision of power suits and boardroom posture. She wore simple loungewear, soft, unadorned. For once, she looked less like a CEO and more like a woman. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there. Then, slowly, she drew in a breath. Deep. Measured. And bowed. A clean, full, 90-degree bow. I'm sorry. 3 words. Spoken with clarity and weight. Each syllable thick with a kind of raw, unfiltered remorse. For the last 3 years, she said softly, I was wrong. Ethan froze, towel still in his hand, half-damp hair dripping down his temples. Did she just? A full bow? An apology? Okay, what the hell is going on? Has the planet reversed orbit? Or is this some new psychological warfare tactic? First humble pie, then shackles? What's the plan, Vanessa? Keep me chained to this collapsing empire forever? Use guilt to turn me into your loyal guard dog? Yeah, not happening. She remained bowed, unmoving, her face hidden, but she could hear it all. Every sarcastic, suspicious, embattled thought that roared through his head. And still, she didn't lift her eyes. The bitterness welled up inside her. But so did something steadier. Stronger. Resolve. Vanessa straightened. When she looked at him, her gaze was clear, sharper than it had ever been. The storm had passed, and in its place was something colder, harder, and resolute. Adrian and Dr. Shaw have been taken in for investigation, she said. But this won't end with them. Her voice didn't tremble, it carried weight. Adrian planted more than just one man inside Whitmore Holdings. The company is hanging by a thread. She paused. Then, for the first time in years, her voice dipped, not with weakness, but with something dangerously close to vulnerability. Ethan, she said quietly, please, help me. Ethan didn't respond at first. He just looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, just a second, he saw it. Beneath the polished skin of a woman forged in ice and pride, there was a Whitmore. Not the name. The fight. She's serious. And she finally understands what's at stake. Still, he didn't answer. Inside his mind, a storm of annoyance churned. Help her? That means stepping right back into the fire. I left all this behind. I don't owe them anything. I don't owe her anything. But, her grandfather was decent. He never looked down on me. Watching Whitmore Holdings crumble while that idiot Adrian gloats. God, this is such a pain. His inner monologue spun in circles, but only for a moment. Then he exhaled sharply and tossed his towel onto the couch. He looked up, and for the first time, really met her gaze. His expression was calm. But his eyes? Serious. Dead serious. I'll help. Vanessa's eyes lit up like the flicker of a long-lost flame. But Ethan wasn't done. On one condition, he said. His tone was even, his face unreadable. Once this is over, we're getting a divorce. I don't want a cent of Whitmore Holdings. Not then. Not ever. The light in her eyes dimmed. Just like that. Like someone had pulled a curtain over the sun. Her chest tightened, sharp, sudden, aching. She'd always known. But knowing wasn't the same as hearing it spoken aloud. And it hurt more than she'd expected. Much more. Vanessa lowered her eyes, hiding everything behind a calm mask. She nodded once, barely. Okay. By the next morning, the Whitmore Holdings CEO's office had been unofficially converted into a war room. Ethan had made himself right at home. He was sunk deep into a leather sofa near the windows, legs casually crossed, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. Honestly, he looked more relaxed than he ever did at home. Across from him, Vanessa sat behind her desk, a spread of financial reports and internal memos open in front of her. Her focus was razor-sharp, pen gliding across page after page as she cross-checked the figures. Inside Ethan's head, the commentary was flowing. Adrian's crown jewel, Novatech Industries, is pushing that flashy VR project hard right now. Buzz is everywhere. He's got everyone chasing it like it's the next Apple. But the truth? It's vaporware. Core tech's just a pile of outdated British scraps he bought for pennies. The whole operation runs on smoke, mirrors, and that fake messiah persona of his. Vanessa's pen stopped. She circled the name Novatech Industries with a sharp, deliberate stroke. Step 1, plant interest. We'll create a few fake overseas investment firms, nothing shady, just plausible enough, and have them show serious enthusiasm in the project. Drive up buzz. Drive up price. Let him get greedy. Let him start shifting internal funds, maxing out leverage, going all in. And just when he thinks he's on the verge of unicorn glory, pull the rug. Fast. We'll team up with the firms he's already scammed, call in some favors, let the banks and creditors do the rest. No lawsuits. No dirty work. Just good old-fashioned market justice. Ethan was so deep in the fantasy he could practically see Adrian's meltdown, tears, ruined suit, ruined life, maybe screaming at a Bloomberg reporter outside a courthouse. He grinned. A slow, vicious, deeply satisfied grin. Vanessa, hearing every word of his gleeful inner monologue, lifted her phone without hesitation and dialed her assistant. "Reach out to Mr. Smith at Skyrise Group," Vanessa said into the phone. Her voice was cool, crisp, and unwavering. "Tell him I'm managing a tranche of offshore capital. We're very interested in Novatech's VR project. I'd like to have a conversation." Her tone was surgical. Every word clean. Controlled. But more than that, it was precise. So precise, in fact, that Ethan paused mid-scroll. He glanced up at her, brows lifting slightly. Huh. That was unexpected. Over the next few days, something strange happened. Unspoken. Unplanned. And almost unnervingly effective. Ethan kept his usual routine, lounging around the study, sipping coffee like it was a national sport, tapping lazily at his phone while lounging barefoot in Whitmore's once pristine executive suite. But inside? Inside, his brain was working like a war room, plotting moves, reading signals, running simulations in silence. And Vanessa? She executed. Flawlessly. Every whispered thought that formed in Ethan's mind, every hypothetical manipulation, every bait-ance which he hadn't even said out loud yet, she acted on it. Not late. Not loosely. But with frightening exactitude. If he imagined laying a trap, she was already halfway through building it. If he thought of a move to pressure a buyer, her assistant had already placed the call. They never discussed strategy out loud. They didn't need to. It was like watching a magician and their reflection perform a routine in perfect synchronicity, only one held the illusion, the other made it real. And it worked. Adrian took the bait. Hook. Line. Sinking. Drunk on his own ego, still convinced Vanessa was racked with guilt over the breakup, he leaned into the false courtship of foreign capital like a man starving at a feast. Novatech stock surged on rumors. More fake investors showed interest. Adrian doubled down. Then tripled. All according to plan. Each step he took dragged him deeper into a trap woven from his own arrogance, and two people he never dreamed would team up. Late into the night, the only sound left in the study was the rhythmic tapping of keys. Ethan sat at the desk, eyes fixed on a string of fluctuating data across the monitor. His brows furrowed, just barely. Adrian still standing? That cockroach had a backup fund? Where the hell did that come from? Damn it. That complicates things. He exhaled through his nose, frustration simmering just beneath the surface. Then, without lifting her head, Vanessa spoke. 3 days ago, she said calmly, he mortgaged one of the properties under his mother's name. Took a $50 million loan from a gray market lender. Here's the contract. She slid a folder across the desk to him. Ethan froze. Completely. He turned slowly, eyes locking on her focused profile. Inside, a tidal wave rose. How the hell does she know that? I didn't say a word. Coincidence? His expression didn't change. But just to test something, something absurd, something terrifying, he thought another thought. Quietly. Casually. God, my neck's killing me. Been hunched here for days. Would kill for someone to rub the knots out. Vanessa didn't respond. Didn't even glance at him. She simply set down her pen, stood, and walked around behind him. Her hands came to rest gently on his shoulders, and then, without a word, she began to knead. Her touch was precise. Firm in the right places, light in the others. She found the exact muscle group that had been aching, and uncoiled the tension like she'd mapped his entire spine. Ethan sat perfectly still. Eyes wide. Heart still. What the hell? The silence pressed in. Then, just to be sure, it happened. The ridiculous thought. The one that crossed from strange into horror movie levels of impossible. He inhaled, deep. And screamed inside his mind. I'm thirsty. I want an ice-cold Coke. Lots of ice. Vanessa paused mid-massage. Then, wordlessly, she walked out of the room. 1 minute later, she returned. Glass in hand. Inside, dark soda fizzed gently over crystal-clear cubes of ice. The glass clinked softly as she placed it beside his keyboard. Ethan stared at the drink like it was radioactive. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. A chill started at his toes and climbed, fast and merciless, all the way to the base of his skull. The Whitmore Holdings annual gala was a symphony of light and glass. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. Champagne flutes clinked like wind chimes. The city's elite were out in full force, investors, politicians, media giants, foreign delegates, each one watching, calculating, admiring. It was Whitmore Holdings' first grand event under Vanessa's leadership. And it was a statement. Power. Stability. Reinvention. Midway through the evening, the string quartet had just shifted to a soft jazz arrangement when the room froze. The music stopped. Conversation halted. A man had appeared at the back of the hall, uninvited, unwelcomed, and unmistakably theatrical. Adrian. His suit was tailored to perfection. His face, anything but. There was a pallor to him now, something unhinged behind his eyes. The sharpness of desperation. The twitch of a man unraveling. 2 lawyers flanked him as he stormed toward the stage. Ladies and gentlemen. Adrian seized the microphone, his voice rasping with tension, thin and cracking at the edges. I came here tonight to reveal the truth about the woman standing before you. All eyes turned to Vanessa. Adrian's glare was venomous. He pointed at her like she'd personally lit the match that burned his life down. She colluded with outsiders, foreign agents, to fabricate evidence. She framed me. She betrayed this company. And worst of all, she put her own grandfather's life at risk just to steal power. A shocked murmur rippled through the crowd. In the far corner of the ballroom, Ethan was balancing a plate with 2 mini cheesecakes and a lemon tart, calmly evaluating frosting density, when the outburst caught his ear. He blinked. Then snorted. Wow. The final death spiral. Didn't think he'd go down this publicly. Gotta respect the flair. Come on, Adrian. Don't fizzle out. Make it worth the popcorn. And Adrian delivered. On cue, one of his lawyers stepped forward and projected a document onto the ballroom's main screen. Transaction reports. Signed forms. A polished, professional-looking dossier accusing Vanessa of embezzlement, hidden accounts, and asset transfers. "Here!" Adrian shouted. "This is the truth you've all been too blind to see." Gasps. Flashes. Cameras clicking like insect wings. All eyes were now on Vanessa. But she stood still. Unmoving. And in the corner, his fork paused halfway to his mouth, Ethan grinned. Ryan and Linda had gone pale. They stood off to the side, frozen, caught between the wreckage of their own doubts and the man they still, somewhere deep down, hadn't fully stopped believing in. The documents on the screen looked polished. Clean. Believable. And for a split second, the room wavered. Whispers swelled like an undertow. But Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She let Adrian shout himself hoarse, let the accusations bleed dry in the spotlight, before she walked forward, heels clicking softly on marble, deliberate and slow. She reached for the microphone in Adrian's hand. He hesitated. She stared. And he let go. Her voice, when it came, was cool and steady, amplified through the sound system until it sliced clean through the tension in the ballroom. "I heard everything you said." She turned to the audience, gaze sweeping the crowd, unshaken. "But since we're in the mood for transparency, a pause. Calm. Controlled. I brought something too. I'd like you all to take a look." She raised her hand, and snapped. One crisp, echoing snap. The screen behind her flickered. The fabricated documents vanished. Replaced by video. Security footage. A hospital corridor. Time-stamped. Crystal clear. Adrian was slipping a thick envelope into Dr. Gregory Shaw's coat pocket. His voice was unmistakable. "Once this is done, the villa in Surrey is yours." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a dropped wine glass. The footage shifted. Adrian's private office. He sat at his desk with 3 known associates, laying out plans, cold, deliberate, on how to siphon assets from Whitmore Holdings. Email exchanges. Wire transfers. Audio clips. Full outlines of infiltration strategy. Names. Faces. Every single piece of the puzzle. Undeniable. Damning. Deadly. Silence fell like a guillotine. No more whispers. No more flashes. Just a room full of people sitting perfectly still, watching a man implode in real time. It was like the room forgot how to breathe. Every face, stunned, silent, suffocated, was turned toward the screen, watching the polished facade of a man they once admired peel away to reveal something feral. Monstrous. "No. No, it's fake. She forged it. All of it." Adrian's voice cracked, wild and desperate, every word a broken gasp. He looked nothing like the smooth-talking gentleman who'd strode in 15 minutes ago. More like a cornered animal. "Terrible performance," Ethan noted, popping a bite of tiramisu into his mouth. "Weak delivery. Lacks emotional layering." 2 security guards moved swiftly through the crowd, flanking Adrian and lifting his sagging frame off the stage. Camera flashes ignited like lightning behind them as he was dragged out, hollow and beaten, like the punchline to his own failed coup. And just like that, the show was over. Later that night, the rooftop was quiet. The gala had long ended. The lights below blinked like distant galaxies, and the city hummed beneath them, alive, but far away. Vanessa stood barefoot near the railing, heels abandoned behind her, silk dress catching the breeze. She looked down at the city she now ruled, calm and unreadable. Ethan walked up behind her, yawning. His mind was already elsewhere: divorce paperwork, flight search tabs, beachside coffee shops in Silverford. Then she spoke. "Ethan." He paused. "Yeah." "That Coke," she said, turning around. Her eyes locked on his, deep and direct under the night sky. The one with ice. That was what you wanted, wasn't it? The words hit like a shot to the chest. Ethan's lazy grin froze in place. The easy nonchalance drained from his face. His brain short-circuited. What? How? It all connected. The stake. The shoulder rub. The contract. The VR setup. The moment he'd laughed off as coincidence. The thoughts she acted on before he even said a word. She could hear him. All this time, it hadn't been intuition. It hadn't been guessing. It had been real. No coincidence. No accident. Fuck. That was the only word left in Ethan's head. Just that one, ringing through his skull like a gong. Vanessa saw the flicker in his eyes, the moment he stopped breathing, the second the dots finally connected, and her chest crumpled. Her eyes turned glassy in an instant. Tears rose, and then broke, spilling over like something long dammed up. I didn't know why at first, she choked out, but ever since that charity gala. I could hear you. Her voice trembled, but the words were clear. Measured. True. I heard you call me stupid. I heard you say I was blind, that my whole family was made of fools. I heard you say Adrian wasn't who he seemed. I heard you warn me about Dr. Gregory Shaw. I heard you in the office, walking me through every move I needed to make. I just... Her throat closed. I'm sorry. The tears came harder now. Raw, unstoppable. She stepped forward and gripped his sleeve with both hands, clutching it like it was the last solid thing left in the world. I was blind. I treated you like you were nothing. I ignored every single thing you ever did for me. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Ethan looked down at her fingers, gripping his shirt, trembling. He stared at them like they belonged to someone else. His mind was chaos. Are you fucking kidding me? I just buried the final boss. The story was over. We were done. I was supposed to be divorced by Tuesday. And now she's doing this? The tearful redemption arc? What kind of twisted epilogue is this? Every insult he'd muttered in silence. Every plan he'd plotted to break free. Every moment of contempt, sarcasm, calculation. She'd heard them all. And she hadn't run. She'd listened. She'd adjusted. She'd fought. For him. For the company. For the family that had never once thanked him. Vanessa looked up. Her face streaked with tears, her voice shaking. Can you give me another chance? She whispered. Please, don't go. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Something cold. And tight. And dangerous. He wanted to say no. He wanted to turn, to walk away, to stick to the script he'd written in fire and fury. But the words lodged in his throat. Choked. And died there. God damn it. The rooftop confession that night had been a key, one neither of them knew existed until it turned. And now the door between them was open. But inside? Still a mess. Years of silence, neglect, resentment, they didn't disappear with a single tear or a whispered please don't go. But the roles had shifted. The war was over. And Vanessa Whitmore, queen of mergers, strategist of takeovers, heiress to one of the country's most formidable legacies, was now trying to chase a man. For the first time in her life. Ethan was draped across the living room couch, lazily flipping through food delivery apps, debating the philosophical merits of fried chicken versus ramen for lunch, when she appeared. Vanessa. Dressed down, no heels, no armor, just a nervous glint in her eyes and a tray in her hands. Lunch, she said. The tray held a single steak. Or rather, something vaguely shaped like one. Its edges were charred black, the center still oozing crimson. The smell was complex, equal parts wood smoke and regret. She set it down with cautious pride, like a student handing in an extra credit project. Her eyes searched his face, full of tension, hope, and the terrified excitement of someone attempting a language she'd never spoken aloud before. Ethan's left eye twitched. What the hell is that? No. You know what? Doesn't matter. She tried. If I die, I die. Respect the hustle. Expression blank, he picked up his knife and fork and carved off a brittle corner. It crunched. It bled. It resisted. He put it in his mouth. Chewed. Swallowed. Barely survived. Vanessa watched him like he was the judge on a Michelin panel. Well? She asked softly. Ethan's voice was even. It's cooked. Just, cooked with a personality disorder. Vanessa caught the sarcasm the moment it formed in his mind. Her face flushed, red, then white, then somewhere in between. There was a flash of indignation. Embarrassment. And then, absurdly, a strangled laugh she refused to let him hear. Wordlessly, she turned, picked up the tray, and walked back to the kitchen. Ethan watched her go, the ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips. Maybe the door was still messy inside. But at least now, they were standing in the same room. The next day, the steak was gone. In its place? A tall glass of green juice. Opaque. Frothy. Suspiciously alive. Ethan stared at it, watching a single bubble rise to the surface like something trapped was trying to escape. Did she juice the backyard lawn? He closed his eyes. And downed it in one go. The flavor defied language. Somewhere between wet spinach and regret. Over the following days, Vanessa changed her life like it was a hostile takeover. Except this time, the target wasn't a company, it was a man. She cancelled every non-essential engagement. Declined galas. Postponed meetings. Rebuilt her schedule around him. Ethan. Taking care of him became her mission. Her obsession. Her penance. And Ethan? Well, he didn't say anything. But his body noticed. The spot on the couch where he always slouched now had a brand new lumbar pillow, firm, orthopedic, color-matched. The nightstand beside the bed always had the exact brand of mineral water he'd once mentioned in passing. His gaming setup? Upgraded. Silently. Overnight. Top-of-the-line hardware. New controller. Zero lag. He kept up appearances, same hoodie, same lazy posture, same indifferent tone, but inside? He was thriving. Not bad. 5 stars for effort. I feel like a house cat living in a spa. Still, this isn't enough to earn forgiveness. Nice try. Not unless tomorrow's juice turns into Coke with ice. Vanessa, hearing every petty, smug thought, tried harder. But peace doesn't last in stories like theirs. And Adrian? Adrian wasn't done. Even drowning in disgrace, he still had a few poisonous strings left to pull. That afternoon, Ethan was deep into a game, fingers flying across the controller, mind locked in a boss battle, when something snapped inside him. Not a sound. Not a thought. Just a feeling. Cold. Sharp. Wrong. His chest tightened. His heart gave a lurch. Something was off. Without thinking, he tossed the controller aside and grabbed his phone. He dialed Vanessa. No answer. He called again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. The house felt too quiet. Too still. And every instinct in his body screamed. Something's happened. The third call went straight to voicemail. Phone off. Ethan's expression changed instantly. The easygoing sarcasm vanished, replaced by a cold, focused stillness. No hesitation. He was out the door in seconds, keys in hand, engine roaring to life. There was one place. A remote property Adrian had always kept under wraps, a repurposed factory in the outskirts, long abandoned to anyone who didn't know better. In the last life, Ethan remembered, it had been used for things no one was ever supposed to know. By the time he reached the factory, dusk had started to fall. The building was silent, its broken windows like dead eyes in the fading light. Inside, Vanessa, tied to a chair, mouth sealed with duct tape. Two men stood beside her, rough, alert, armed. One was speaking into a phone, pacing just feet from her. "Relax. We'll make it clean. Once it's done, neither she nor that idiot husband will be a problem ever again." Ethan didn't call the cops. There was no time. He moved to the side window, slipped in quietly, and grabbed the nearest thing he could use, an old rusted steel pipe. Then came the chaos. The first man went down hard, Ethan's blow landing with a sharp crack that echoed through the factory. But the second turned fast, slashing a knife across Ethan's forearm before he could react. Blood soaked through his sleeve almost instantly. Vanessa screamed through the tape, muffled, frantic, helpless, as Ethan stumbled back, hand pressed to the wound. The man lunged. Ethan dodged left, then right, just enough to avoid the blade, and in a final burst of adrenaline, drove his knee into the man's leg, buckling him down. Then came the pipe, one savage swing to the back of the neck. Down. Silence. Ethan stood panting, skin slick with sweat, arm drenched in blood. The pipe clattered to the floor. He staggered to Vanessa, ripped the tape from her mouth, and immediately pulled out his phone. This time, he called the police. The moment she was free, Vanessa didn't hesitate. She surged forward and threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably, the sound raw and unfiltered. He didn't pull away. He just stood there, breathing hard, one arm bloody and limp, the other wrapped tightly around her trembling back. And for the first time in years, they held each other not out of duty. Not for survival. But because neither one could bear the thought of losing the other. Downtown Medical Center, VIP ward. This time, it was Ethan lying in the hospital bed. Vanessa sat by his side, her eyes swollen from crying. Carefully, she tucked the blanket around him again, as if making sure he wouldn't disappear if she looked away. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "You're so stupid," she choked, her voice thick with guilt. "You could have just left me. You were going to leave anyway, why come back?" Ethan watched her quietly. The stitches on his arm throbbed with every heartbeat, but in his chest, there was only calm. "Because if you die, who's gonna pay me back that $5 million? The thought popped up like usual, dry and sardonic. But staring at her tear-streaked face, so raw, so scared, so full of the kind of pain no performance could fake, every sarcastic line he'd planned got stuck somewhere in his throat. He sighed, then lifted his uninjured arm, wiping her tears with a clumsy gentleness that didn't match his usual aloofness. This time, the words that came out of his mouth finally matched the voice in his heart. "Because you're my wife, dummy." 1 month later, Ethan had recovered and been discharged. The divorce papers Vanessa once kept so carefully had mysteriously vanished, never to be mentioned again. At sunset, the two of them walked hand in hand along a quiet stretch of beach, the waves painting lazy lines across the sand, golden light spilling across the horizon. Ethan looked toward the sea, squinting at the sun as it dipped lower, and sighed internally. So much for my silver-furred dream. That solo escape plan? Completely wrecked. Guess it's not a party of one anymore. As he stood there grumbling to himself, Vanessa suddenly stopped walking. She squeezed his hand. Then leaned close, her breath warm against his ear, her voice light with a smile. Then let me come with you. To Silverford. The sun dipped low. And behind them, their shadows stretched long and steady across the sand, two people, standing where once there had only been one.